Hello everyone, this is China Paradigm, where we, Dashi Consulting, interview seasoned entrepreneurs in China.
Hello everyone, I'm Matthieu David, the founder of Dashi Consulting and its podcast China Paradigm, and today I am with Bruno Lhopiteau. You are the managing director and founder of Siveco China. You have been in China for a while. I don't want to say a number, but I think like close to 20 years you have been in contact with China since 1999. I want your confirmation later on this. And you created Siveco China in 2004. It's the largest maintenance consulting company in China. So you are helping, as I understand, companies to maintain, to understand how to extend the life cycle of their assets, the factory assets in China, but also understanding the regulations and how to manage a factory in China. You are very involved into technology as well, with IoT, with mobile in the factory, and that's something I'd be interested, and I think everyone would be interested to know more about. First question, what's the size of your company?
Well, good morning, Matt. Yes, what you say is, I think your introduction was quite accurate. Well, the company size, we are, as you said, we are the largest in a very niche market. This is a company with 45 people, headquartered in Shanghai. We have other smaller offices in Beijing and Hong Kong, a tiny office in Chengdu, but 45 people, that's it. So it sounds very small. Our customers tend to be giant companies, big utility companies, very large manufacturing groups, and they know we are the largest in our field. But when they look at how many people we have, they might think like, oh, small company. We are a small company. This is an SME. It's an SME that is not going to grow much bigger in terms of number of people. Well, if we're doing well, we might grow up to, I don't know, 100 people, but never more than that. Hopefully the revenue keeps growing, but we should be able to maintain a small staff size. But as you said, we are just to correct a bit what what you said about we are maintenance consultancy. So we help infrastructure projects, manufacturing plants to optimize the life cycle of their equipment. What's that? It's operation, maintenance of the equipment, planning for it from the design stage, installation, construction stage, managing it in the life of the plant and an industrial plant, an infrastructure project. The design lifetime could be around 20 years, 30 years. It's a long-term improvement. There are lots of losses. Some of them that you've probably heard of or you imagine throughout the life of an infrastructure, of an equipment, especially when you have to replace the equipment early. An equipment you design for a 20 years lifetime, you replace it after 5 years for whatever reason. That's a problem. It's a very high cost. So we help companies optimize this within strong and more strict regulatory guidelines, environmental compliance, safety, security, which has a cost, a direct financial cost, and an impact which is even bigger on the company, on the population. Maybe if you're a water company, for example, we work a lot in the water industry, so the water quality will have a huge impact on people and so on. So we help optimize all this, and we do this by using technology. So you mentioned, you said something like we use high tech. It was not an afterthought. It's not something we did. It's not one plus the other. So we have always combined. That was the idea of the company in 2004, where we combined a specific industrial know-how, which was my know-how and that of my team, maintenance management know-how, which was very hard to find in the Chinese market at that time. So we combined the know-how and technological solutions that we designed to achieve, to meet the needs of our clients.
I understand. about the service you offer more precisely, could you tell us how you work? Let's say I'm a company. I own factories in China. I know I need to improve the life cycle, the life of my machines. Or I need to take care of them. What would you do for us? What would you begin with? What would be a 1-year contract, 10 years contract? Would you equip us with your technology? How can I plug my technology into my machine? There's a lot of questions coming with what you just said. What type of service do you provide, and how do you plug in your technology into an existing factory?
Let me try to break it down a little bit because of course it's a bit complex. We work primarily with infrastructure projects. For us, it's mostly water companies, water treatment, waste incineration, for example, and energy, different types of power plants, primarily infrastructure. Those type of infrastructures represent about, I think it's 80% of our business. Mostly state-owned companies. Infrastructures are state-owned in China and in most other countries. And the remaining 20% are industrial plants, typically large industrial plants, asset-intensive, maintenance-intensive plants, typically chemical plants or large automated factories. How do we get in a project? Ideally, we come in from the design stage. It happens on large infrastructure projects. For us, it happens mostly in power plants, large capacity power plants. You're talking about very large projects, these large capacity power plant. We did some gas turbine power plant projects in North Africa, for example. This is a $1 billion project, not my project, but the plant investment. So that to give you an idea of the size, $1 billion infrastructure. Those projects are so asset and capital intensive and maintenance intensive that they, let's say they know how important this is, and they call us in from the late design stage.
But who is leveraging you? Is it the architect? Is it the design and build company? Is it the owner of the infrastructure?
It's the owner investor. For power plants, it's either a big national company or it's a major power plant investor operator. But that is the ideal case, and it happens mostly in the power industry or in very complex infrastructure projects. I'm telling you this to try to walk through a project. The other type of entry into a deal, which is more common, but those projects tend to be smaller, is a company would call us years after they have started their operation. So they already have, typically it's a factory or smaller infrastructure. They have been operating and they meet problems. In the past 10 years or so in China, our business has been driven by, I would say, you could either say by accidents, industrial disasters or industrial problems, or you can look at it the other way around, by stricter and stricter regulations. But you have companies that have had problems. They had a major accident in the plant with people getting hurt, or at least a major financial loss, a downtime, production was stopped for quite a while. It costed them a lot of money. It took a long time to get the spare parts, the replacement parts. They realized at that moment they were not that well organized. They realized that the inspections that their people are supposed to conduct regularly were actually not done, although all the checklists are yes. It's a kind of typical situation. Then the company's management realize, oh, maybe we should do something about our maintenance or our technical management. Sometimes it's not recognized as maintenance. So maintenance may be considered a very narrow field that only the maintenance people do. It's technical management of a facility, really. It might not be, usually it is not the maintenance department or the maintenance manager of a company that brings us in. It's usually someone else, actually. So either we come in at the design stage for big infrastructures, or we come in after a problem or recurring problems have happened in a plant, and then the company calls us in. Then we come and do a type of audit or assessment of the situation. We try to understand the organization, problems, the challenges, the opportunities for improvement, and we try to measure the benefits of us involving in the project, based on which we design what I call a project, an improvement project. That's how we get into projects. Now we operate primarily in China. Most of the clients are in China, and the Chinese market have certain characteristics, which you know, and I think many of your viewers also know. But it's a market, to summarize, to oversimplify it a little bit. It's a market, an industrial market that has developed a little bit late. So you don't have a long history of maintenance management, of regulations and standards that you might find in Europe, or education for technical education and so on. So these arrived very late. And of course, the market developed very fast. I talked about infrastructures. Here we have the largest high-speed railway infrastructures in the world. By far, we have, in terms of power generation, is the same. In terms of specific types of power generation, hydro, nuclear, it's the same. And everything is so big and developed very fast in the past 20 years. And as you said, I've been here for 20 years. So I kind of saw that. So an industry, all types of infrastructures or industries developed extremely fast in the past 20 years, and very successfully. Of course, there's a shortage of skilled resources. Of course, this is very difficult to manage this growth from a construction perspective, from a supply chain, let's say, perspective, and from an operational and maintenance perspective, which comes next. You build your infrastructure, you have to maintain it. So here we're facing a large scale challenges and opportunities, while we cannot rely on let's say, a Western way of dealing with maintenance management. Just because you don't have this ecosystem of maintenance management. You don't have this, you cannot take people from school, a guy who's a maintenance engineer who already has all the methodologies. You don't have such people. You don't have such education. So you have to do something different, which is why I started the company, actually. And then when we, as you noted, we also work outside of China, on the Belt and Road, or outside of China. And anyway, we can come back to that. So those places outside of China may have slightly different challenges, though. In practice, we noticed that what we have done in China applies very well outside as well, which is actually an interesting.
That's a very interesting point.
These companies actually as well, but I come to that to try to give you some background, because you actually ask some very complex questions. What do we do? So knowing that, we start with, if it's an existing installation, we start with an audit. We identify challenges and opportunities. It's very important to look at opportunities, how we can improve, how people can improve, how much benefit, financial benefits, among others, that the company can get out of a project, based on which we design a project. For us, a project is something within a 6-month framework. 6 months is a good time. It's not too long. You don't get bored. People don't change too much.
6 months is the audit? I didn't get it. 6 months is the audit period? Okay.
An audit is a short, and
A few weeks, right?
on the size of the company, this is something between, frankly, some factory, we spend half a day there. It's enough.
I see.
Some larger projects, we spend 2 weeks. Just to give you, that's the size of an audit. It's something very, very short. The project is the improvement project, designed based on the audit. That's around 6 months. Could be a bit longer, could be a bit shorter, but 6 months is a good time frame to get results. You want to get results out of a project. What do we do in the project? We help the company organize itself around some basic principles that usually are not in place. There's a standard for this. There's something called ISO 55000, which has become a Chinese standard. Actually, China has been quite involved in this standard in the past 2 years. But to give you, it's a good framework because it says that you need to have knowledge of your assets. Well, what's that? You need to have technical documentation in place for your most important assets, which means you need to.
You can do that for them, right? You would do that for them as well.
We would help them with that.
Okay.
But there's typically something missing. Important assets, which are they? Why are they important? And then make sure you have the technical documentation in place. Having a maintenance strategy in place. What are your people doing? What is your technical team doing, and why? Then that's let's say a maintenance strategy. Is it in place? Do people know about it? Then you need to have a system to ensure, to verify that you are actually implementing your maintenance strategy. So some kind of feedback loop, which most companies don't have because they rely on a paper process. Paper process is the kind of checklist that you might have seen. You don't deal with the infrastructure so much, but simple type of maintenance is cleaning. In cleaning, you go to the toilet in your building. There may be a sheet of paper on the wall with a checklist, and they come and do cleaning rounds. It's a kind of maintenance. It's kind of very simple maintenance, cleaning rounds, and the cleaner is supposed to tick or put a note, and then maybe put his name. It's kind of checklist. Typically, checklists are always good. Whether the guy has come or not, whether the job has been done or not, you don't know. You don't know unless you come and actually check. The checklist itself usually doesn't mean much in let's say in a Chinese environment. So this is how to get feedback. Cleaning is a very simple example, but more technical maintenance requires more feedback. The steps you're supposed to take are much more complex. You may have to do a diagnosis. You have to follow a methodology. And so how do you ensure that the technicians follow this methodology? And how do you get feedback so that you can analyze the results? So now we touched the weak link of maintenance, of technical management in China and abroad. It's methodology. How you do things and why. And does the guy, you may have very clever people in the company, you may have very clever people centrally in Beijing, you may have very clever people in the design institute at the university and so on, but the technician who's doing the job, who's troubleshooting the machine, does he know what he's doing? Is he following a methodology that he understands? This is a big challenge in the context of growth, which I described. When you have one factory, well, the manager can be there and check everything.
Yes.
But when you have 10, when you have 50, when you have 100, all over China, some of them you acquired, some of them you built. How do you manage this? Plus staff turnover, which for multinationals tend to be high, for local companies tend to be much less. All this compound to make the design and implementation of methodology is very, very, very difficult. So that's the example of the checklist. It's a kind of methodology, actually. How you do your cleaning and have you done it or not. It's a very simple methodology. So this is the core of the issue. So we design projects to implement the methodologies. But it's not just consulting. You could train people. You can train people. They'll be very happy to be trained on what is preventive maintenance, for example. Avoiding breakdowns through...
You would supply this. You would supply the training as well.
We can train people. Okay. We can have them organized. We can say, here, you need to have a planner. Here you need... But once we're gone, is this organization going to stick? Well, the answer is no. People will be very happy about the training. We have very good trainers. We know the business. They'll be very impressed. Oh, yes, what you said, Bruno, is very good. Then what? Once you're gone, everything will go back to normal. I guarantee it. And this is what's happening. Training, maintenance training in China, maintenance consulting doesn't work. Never worked. That's also why we have so few competitors, by the way. We're the largest in the market. The second one is maybe one third of our size. They are nowhere because they do pure consulting, which is not what we do. So we have designed technology to help give a more concrete aspect to what we say to training. I'm not just going to tell you, well, ISO 55000 is good, preventive maintenance is good. Look how you should do. This is a troubleshooting methodology that you should follow. No, I'm going to give you a software designed for this purpose. That's going to make everything more visual, first of all. Everything more.
And your software.
Yes. So it's a software.
That's the one calling you call Bluebee, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. So we have several pieces of software that work together. We can come to that if you want. Bluebee is the core of this, because you want to make sure that you have designed a methodology, a maintenance plan, for example, a preventive maintenance instruction. Then you want to be sure it is implemented properly. And maybe it's not. If so, you need feedback so you understand why it has not been implemented properly. Does the technician not fully understand what he's doing? Do you lack of resources? Do people need more training? Was the methodology wrong, or the work instruction was wrong or not written properly, and so on? So you need feedback. So Bluebee is a tool we designed to achieve this. It's a mobile solution. It's an app. So the worker is equipped. So the weakest link is the people, of course. Is me and you. It's the worker who is going to do the job, and is not just the weakest link. He's everything. He's everything, because
it's a danger as well.
You do nothing in your plant. You rely on people. Even in highly automated plants, by the way, there's all these stories of 4.0 and everything will be automated. You have robots everywhere. People do nothing, sleep. No way. The more automated you go, the more you rely on clever, educated, highly skilled people. So with automation, you are not less reliant on workers. You are more reliant on workers, on skilled workers, which are very hard to find. Small hands doing repetitive jobs have always been very easy to find. But skilled technical workers who can maintain robots, who can maintain sensors, those guys are very hard to find. So you rely more and more on people. So we designed the Bluebee to address this. It's an app, it's a very user-friendly app, and which is the example of the checklist, which is a very simple example. I have it here actually. I have a phone with a Bluebee here. Maybe you cannot see it here. Anyway, it's just a phone.
We can see. Not perfectly, but we can see.
Then you put tags on your on an inspection point. The place, the machine where the guy is supposed to do a weekly cleaning and maybe lubrication. You put a tag on the machine. This is a NFC tag. Could be just a QR code like this.
Okay. It's a QR code. Or what? What technology is it? The other one?
NFC.
So you have the QR code and
NFC.
NFC.
The tag is just it's like an RFID. But every phone can read this nowadays. So then,
okay,
on your inspection point, you put this on your machine, and when the guy receives his work instructions, he has to do the weekly lubrication on that machine. He will come. He has to come because he has to scan this. The work instruction defined centrally says you have to scan. So he comes, he scans, mandatory. So first achievement, the guy has been here. So that's already something. We found that when people come, they tend to do the job. Then he will receive the work instructions, step-by-step work instructions. It could be a picture, it could be it could be a little movie, it could be different things to help him. And then he can report directly in the phone what he has done, take a picture. The picture can be mandatory. This is another control point. You make the picture mandatory before, after, for example. And then, or there could be a measurement to take. There could be different things depending on the work itself. So this is Bluebee. It's a way to ensure that the maintenance strategy, that the policy you have defined, that the methodology, the good best practice is actually implemented, and to get feedback from the worker to the central engineers who can then analyze the situation and make decisions. So this is the core to what we do. So we once we finish the project, part of the project is using our technology to train people, to help structure the organization. Then when we finish the project, we leave our tools there. We leave the Bluebee system, and the organization is up and running using the system on a daily basis, so that they are able to monitor and to constantly audit what they are doing. And we can also assist them. So typically on a monthly basis, we go and look at the system remotely. So we can follow some KPIs, we can track reports of usage, reports on the number of breakdowns, report on cost, and we can advise the client. So it's a way for us to remain there without having to put people on site full time. That's how we can manage with only 45 people, by the way. When we started the business in 2004, factory directors were always asking me, Bruno, can we get a good maintenance manager from you? Or can you help us hire a good maintenance manager? Or I heard a lot of things like, hey, Bruno, if one of your people are very good, if one of them can be the maintenance manager, we'll pay you very well. Then how many people do I need? And this is not the right solution, because I always say, you want a good maintenance manager, you won't find it. If he's that good, if your maintenance manager is that good, he's already the factory manager. And then next year is the GM of the plant.
I see.
There's a shortage of such resources. So you cannot, I oversimplify a little bit. Of course, there are a few good maintenance managers, but you cannot rely on hiring the right people. You need to build a system. So same for us. So I cannot have an auditor behind every client full time. I would grow to such a size where I cannot hire such people, or I cannot train such people. Then we'll have the same problem as my clients. So we design systems to help us and to help our clients manage this. This is how Bluebee came to be born in 2009. I think the first release of Bluebee was 2008, and we officially set up our R&D center in Shanghai here in 2009, 10 years.
So to summarize, you have an audit part, you have then an execution part to create the new organization, 6 months. But the audit part can be up from half a day to a couple of days, a couple of weeks maybe, but not more than a month, if I'm understanding is correct. Then you have 6 months for execution to shape the organization, to reorganize the factory, and then at the same time, you implement Bluebee. I believe most of the time you implement Bluebee, at least you want to implement Bluebee to be able to follow up the organization, and that it's still executed in the way you suggested to execute. So I feel there are three main services. So we understood the three types of services you're running. I like to focus a bit more on the technology part. You're talking about the mobile to be used in factory. When you started the business in 2008, 2009, I think that was the beginning of the iPhone, but beginning of the mobile as we see it now. At that time, we had more BlackBerry, you had other mobile devices. Did you have this intuition that everyone will have a mobile phone and everyone will have a screen and you could have download an app and so on? So you have to be in this race as early as 2008 and 2009, or that came later. Could you tell us more about how you had this intuition that mobile will be in the factory, which I feel, but maybe I'm wrong, is a bit counterintuitive for people who are working in factories where you have specific devices at that time to go into the factory?
It's a good point. Different types of mobile devices were used in factories for inspection purposes, different types of condition monitoring purposes for a long time. When I started working in the mid 1990s, we had we had portable vibration monitoring devices, for example. They were not mobile phones. They were the normal people didn't have mobile phone at that time. I certainly didn't have one as a young engineer. But we had, in the plant, we had a few portable devices, very specialized devices. The idea to use such devices for maintenance was there. And when the first industrial PDAs were introduced, I think late 1990s, we called them PDAs at that time. We already had maintenance management applications on those devices. But normal people outside of the factory didn't use mobile phones. Then something happened in the early 2000s. About the time I arrived in China, actually, I arrived December 1999. So I was saying we actually thought of using mobile technology, consumer type of technology, which became more and more common maybe 2005, 2006. So around that time, we thought we already had very user-friendly software used on a PC. And we were trying to make it more and more user-friendly so it could be used on simple screens, touch screens in the factory. And then the mobile phone started to become very common, and we thought, but this is what we need. And some companies in the West started to develop, already had mobile applications for maintenance. But they were focused on what I call Western issues. I mentioned the history of maintenance. Western countries like France, UK have a long history, 100 years managing maintenance. Their focus in the 1990s, 2000s, were not on methodology, were not on helping workers with good practices. They were on cutting down the number of staff. They were on reducing overtime, reducing the direct cost of people. So they all developed apps. At that time, we didn't call them apps. A mobile software focused on time reporting. How much time, Bruno, you use these to report how much time you spend doing lubrication for this machine. When do you start? When do you finish? Or a software to help people report like some measurements, for example, to make them more efficient in the reporting process, to save time. And we thought, this is totally not our problem in China. Absolutely not our problem. We actually want to hire more people so that we train them so that we can deploy them in the other factories we are going to open. So totally reverse situation. And our people don't have the training and the methodology in mind. Whereas the people in France and in the UK, if you were going to tell them to follow a step-by-step methodology, they would refuse. They would say, what do you think I am? You know, I'm a qualified technician. I don't want your methodology. You don't trust me? Or you're trying to control me? So, but in China, we needed that. So we decided to design such a solution, which we called a Bluebee, like a busy bee going from one machine to another. And we really started software development in 2008. So it took a while. I was thinking about this a lot for several years. We started in 2008. It took a while to get started because developing software costs a lot of money. So it was really a major step, a major investment for us. We already made quite an investment when we started the business, but software development was something else. And we officially set up the R&D center in 2009. So the product has a 10 years history. And of course, technology changes a lot. Mobile technology changes a lot. We started development on Windows Mobile. There was no Android at that time, or no, I don't know. I don't remember. But then Android became prevalent very quickly. Consumer type of devices became good enough to be used in a factory quickly after that. Then things like WeChat started coming. So developing mobile technology which are quite complex applications actually. They have to be very user-friendly, but in the background, they do a lot of things. This is very complex. So we had to adapt. You had to keep adapting our software to all these changes. It's very expensive. But it has been a tremendous tool for us. And today you could say our business is based on having developed such a solution. It really it closes the loop between the worker and the management in a way which we could never achieve before.
Does it mean that you have a mini program now on WeChat? Does it mean that you have a native app? What do you have in terms of format? Is it responsive app, you open browser? Is it a responsive app, you open different app? Is it native? Is it a mini program? Could you tell us more about now, the format you have?
We have, and what we have focused on since 2009 has been a native Android app. Android is the only mobile OS for which you have, of course, lots of consumer type of devices, some of them very cheap, which is good when you deploy on a large scale, but also industrial grade hardware, which, for example, you can use in the chemical industry, in ATEX zone 1, for example, which is explosive atmosphere type of environment. Chemical plants, some areas you cannot bring a normal mobile device. It brings an explosion risk. So of course you don't want an app running on that. But you can buy now you have for the last 5 years or so you have industrial devices running Android. Actually nowadays you get infrared cameras, vibration monitoring instruments running Android. So all those very technical devices can also run our app. So we have a native Android app. It has to be native. It cannot be what you call responsive app or like a web page, because some of our competitors do that, and it limits their scope. If it's a simple app to just receive a work instruction and say you have done the job, I'll report, okay, I've done the job, this problem, that problem. That's okay to just get a web page. But the key is inspections. Inspections is like a checklist on many different equipments. You might have to do a measurement, you might have to take a picture. It's a little bit deep in terms of the work instruction. You cannot use a responsive app for this. This has been
take pictures as well.
In terms of the app itself, the fact that we have it's a real app. Having said that, for simple applications, we have now the WeChat. We have Bluebee for WeChat, which is something we launched in 2016. We tend to do things a little bit too early.
It was early 2016 for mini programs in China.
Yeah, it was not a mini app at that time. It was
Page 5.
Yes, and it did. I think the mini app was not. Well, it was not released as it is today, but it was running within WeChat, taking advantage of WeChat, which everybody had already on their mobile. 2016, and now we have the real mini app as it is understood today in the mini app WeChat mini app ecosystem, and we have customers using it typically for simpler applications. So this is for workers. We call it scan and work. For simple work where you don't have a detailed work instructions, where you don't need a detailed feedback of the work. Cleaning is an example. Cleaning is always a bit silly example because it's normally not that important, so we don't want to manage it so strictly. But also simple in a factory, you have all these TPM or lean manufacturing type of work instruction, but the operator on the machine is supposed to do a daily inspection, visual inspection, some cleaning, some lubrication, and the instruction is already written on the machine. But you want to be able to report problems. You want to be able to report that the job has been done. So you just use the mini app, the WeChat mini app, scan, work, maybe some simple report. You report a problem, and that's it.
Understood. So I understand that your app helps you to connect the machine with the person and to create a to-do list, task, and so on. We are talking now about the factory. I don't know where we are, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, I don't know where we are, but we're talking about factories which is connected. Connected with low signal. We know Sigfox, which has been a very French company, which is going global now, putting IoT everywhere. Does it include as well your solution the opportunity to get data from the machine itself and connect with your dashboard? Is it something you're already doing, or it's an hype and that's not yet the case? Could you tell us more about this automatized, or I don't know how to say, connected factory or the future of now?
It's a bit of both. It's obviously overhyped. It's also something very useful. It's again, it's a big topic. Let me try to break it down a little bit. The ability to get information from the machines have been there for a long time. It was not IoT, but SCADA type of systems, DCS control systems, plant control systems. Especially I mentioned we work a lot in power plants. Power plants are controlled by something called DCS, a distributed control system. We can collect real-time information on the machine condition, operating parameters, and for a long time, for 20 years already, we have built integration between such systems and ours. What IoT brings is much more flexibility and much lower cost in putting sensors, in modifying the sensors and getting that information out. So that factories that were not so automated or didn't have control systems unlike a power plant can do it now at fairly low cost with a lot of flexibility. So this is something we want to use, but the technology involved, the principles, the design principles involved have been well known to us and to companies like us for a long time. There's really nothing new. I mean, we are able to capture alarm type of information. There's a problem. What is the problem? Where is the problem? We're able to capture meter values or measurements, so a value that an instrument is measuring. So this has always been the case. It was the case with the DCS. But today we're able to combine data from a DCS, from a SCADA, and from IoT instruments at a fairly low cost. So of course we utilize this data. So in many of our projects, we connect to an IoT cloud and to such systems. And we are able to influence the design, and sometimes we recommend what type of sensors, what type of measurements will be useful to have in the system. But we complement this. We complement this with what has always been a blind spot is data from people. In two ways. You have people doing, still today, still in a highly automated factories, you have people taking measurements with a portable device. So there's always a mix of online and offline, but it's quite common. You have a guy taking a vibration measurement with a portable device, a guy taking infrared pictures with a portable infrared camera, and where does this information go? So we are able to retrieve this information and put it in the same central database, so that the people who make decisions can look at all this. That's one. So it's still a type of digital information, but it's captured by someone who carries the reader. And the most important one is actually people doing the work. This is what I described before. People doing inspections, people doing repair, people doing preventive maintenance, people supervising something in the plant, and how to put them in the picture, in the digital picture of the plant. So this is really what we do. But then, of course, we will combine with IoT. Now, the big overhype, and again, my team was at a conference in Kunshan last Friday, a 4.0 conference. And everybody was talking about IoT, because everybody wants to listen about IoT, Industry 4.0. And everybody was saying the number one application is predictive maintenance. You might have heard this word, predictive maintenance. And there was even someone talking about prescriptive maintenance. What is prescriptive maintenance of? I don't know. But the idea of, everybody says the number one application of IoT is then you ask, well, what have you done? What project? Where? How? Usually there's nothing. So it is very interesting. It's a very interesting field with a lot of hype, very little real life application, or a lot of misguided applications. We see a lot of like easy meters to collect on IoT are like energy meters. So people say we are going to monitor energy used in the plant, and based on this, we are going to do something related to maintenance, among others. Then you monitor your energy consumption. You have a lot of nice graphs. Then what? It's not so simple as that. So it's interesting. So there are new capabilities, technological capabilities. They are not enough. We believe that by combining them with industrial know-how, with people, with what people know, what people do, then you are able to get something out of it. And this is what we do. It's what we do on a fairly large scale. So we have very, very large clients in the water industry, for example. I think our largest clients are water companies, state-owned Chinese water companies that have that are doing that. So they have implemented a centralized maintenance management system. They collect data from sensors. They collect data from their people, and they ensure that people actually implement the regulatory inspections, implement the preventive maintenance plan, and they use this as a continuous improvement tool with very good results. I mentioned how we start a project with an audit, and we identify the challenges and the opportunities. And so based on these audits, we design a project. Then we are part of the project is to define KPIs, so you can measure how much results we have obtained. And if you don't get results, how do you adjust? So we are able to monitor the return on investment. And those clients, typically in the water industry, have obtained very good results. And the first result is usually that you are able to prove regulatory compliance. You are able to prove that your people are doing the job, doing all the checks as they should do. This is already something quite major, because when you get audited, when you're a water company, you get audited by the government more and more. And the Chinese government has become very strict, especially when it comes to water quality, safety in general, and environmental compliance. So these people are under a lot of pressure, and before, to prove your compliance, it was very hard. You have to go through a lot of paperwork. You have to talk. You have to talk your way out of it. Now it's just there. So the auditor come, look at the system, and it has a very high reliability because of the QR code scanning. So because the picture taking, so you know that the guy has actually been there. You can prove because he scanned the QR code. There's a GPS coordinates. You have a picture. You have the login name. So it proves to the authority that you comply at the level that you never had before. So that's how we use the mobile technology, and in combination with IoT, I would say.
It reminds me a talk that Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal and early investor of Facebook, had to say with his company Palantide, to say where there is something to do is where there is a need of technology and a need of human together. And that's what you are describing. I'd like to go back on the hype, what we call the Factory 4.0. Does it mean that the limit of Factory 4.0 is that the machines which have been built and which are used currently may not be fully equipped to be connected, and then you cannot add up this connection and all the things we are talking about to make it fully connected? What's wrong with what we hear, what people say on the scene, as you heard, and what's really going on? Why is there such a gap?
Well, no, the great advantage of today's IoT type of technology is that you can easily equip even older machinery. It gives you much more flexibility at a low cost. Let's say, we're not getting to the why and how, but it basically gives you much more flexibility there. The difficulty we see from all the players dealing with IoT or 4.0, what the problem is, everybody's doing it. All kind of companies get into this market and are telling you that they are going to do a plant IoT, and they are all telling you that the #1 application is maintenance. Alibaba is doing it, Tencent is doing it, all the big automation suppliers, which have been in this industry for forever, actually, are telling it. All kind of software companies are doing it. There's a lot of startups. A startup, started 6 months ago. They invented some new kind of sensors, or they invented nothing. They just thought there's an opportunity, and they assemble a small team of students doing it, and everybody's doing 4.0. This creates confusion, of course, but it's nice to see. What's missing in most projects of applying such technology for maintenance, just talking about maintenance because this is my field, is a specific know-how. A lot of people misunderstand it. They think it's easy. They think maintenance, I'm going to have a sensor. I'm going to have a sensor to measure something, temperature. And when the temperature is high, well, we know there's a problem. So it's going to send an alarm. And then, the maintenance guy will see the alarm. He will go and look at the machine. And that's predictive maintenance, because you see something before a problem happens. And there's a lot of problems with that. First, it's not predictive at all. It's just alarm management. If you capture an alarm, a high temperature, there's already a problem. It may be a hidden problem, but there's already a problem. So you first have a problem with your concept of what is predictive, what is preventive, what is maintenance. And most people are not even aware of the concept, the definitions, which are well known in this industry. There are international standards that define the meaning of the words that have been around for 20 years, 30 years in some cases. And so a lot of beginners who have good technology are trying to apply them for maintenance, but it's misguided. They don't really know. And so we see a lot of proof of concept type of projects. You're dealing a lot with startups, so you're familiar with that idea. You try something on a small scale, and it's not too expensive. Maybe it's free, and then people are very happy because there's a startup doing it. And if you're a big company, you're very happy because you sponsor a startup, so you can do some marketing around it. We big group, we ally with startups, and we set up an incubator, and they try new stuff in our plant. So there's a lot of proof of concept that do not go anywhere after the initial project. That is something we see a lot. And it's a pity. So, but of course, it's kind of, cannot say it's slowing down, but I think it's going to slow down. And you're going to have a lot of companies that will disappear. Obviously, I mean, if you don't pass the proof of concept stage, you disappear. You need to make money as a company as well. We see this with Alibaba. Alibaba is one of our partners. They have great technology. They are very big. They have very huge financial means, obviously, and they have great technology, and they have a good customer base. And they recognize that they need expertise as well. So we have a partnership with them for a couple of years already. But in the last approximately 1 year, it has become much tighter, because they realize they need a specific know-how into their project that they don't have such a know-how. So we use their cloud platform, we use their IoT platform. We actually are trying to use more and more they have specific software for machine learning, for example, because our customers have very large databases with a lot of data from sensors, from people, all kind of data, and accumulated over the years. So this is very good to do machine learning, and Alibaba has the tools for that. And we bring in specific know-how and specific software, our apps, our software, Bluebee Cloud, that run on the Alibaba platform. So this is what's going to happen. I think combination between technology vendors and more generalist technology vendors and companies like us. We do the same with automation suppliers. We work with ABB, for example. have different types of monitoring technologies, and they use us for our specific know-how. And when you combine this, it works.
Everyone knows about the cloud of Alibaba, but you mentioned two other tools, which are IoT platform and machine learning tools from Alibaba. Could you detail a bit more and be more specific on the two platforms, which are, I think, much less known?
Yeah, but Alibaba has invested a lot in these technologies. They have been able to work with municipal governments, especially. I think that's how they started. To monitor all kinds of sensors in a city, and they have obviously they have strong technology. So they have this as part of their offering for maybe a couple of years already. They have a number of large clients for what I would call simpler application, which are not that simple, but a lot of sensors, but simple sensors, not industrial sensors. And they are trying to get into the industry. But they have the technology, a very good technology for IoT. Their competitors also have. Tencent have this as well. They are direct competitors. They benefit from their very large scale and investment capability, and their capability to acquire certain large clients easily. And then there's the machine learning, which I think they have developed for their own use. For the Alibaba, for the main e-business platform. So they have developed machine learning type of artificial intelligence type of technology, as I guess Amazon has done, Facebook have done for their own applications.
And so it's mainly API you are using in these cases. You're using those APIs in order to connect to some. I see.
It's not just an API. They have a software platform that connects to our database. So we have
okay.
big data database. Very large. We have clients managing hundreds of sites for several years already, with a lot of data. Once you start using mobile apps, you collect a lot of data. Every worker has the app, so every day there's a lot of data in, and we can plug in their tools, which are used to analyze the data. And because we have know-how, industrial know-how, we are able to act as a kind of specialized data scientist using the Alibaba platform. And we said early on, we don't want to develop technologies that have already been developed by other people. So we don't want to become an IoT company or machine learning company. We develop only what is not available in the market. So such as the Bluebee app. But then we use technologies available in the market. So we have been working with open source software for machine learning for several years already. And then when we found Alibaba have very good tools, we started to use their tool as well.
I see. I read in one article, I can't remember where it was, written by you, or a quotation, is that you said that when you're in China, you need to have Chinese clients. And you mentioned that you have a lot of SOE, state-owned enterprises as clients. I think a lot of people want to have Chinese clients. A lot of companies want to have Chinese clients, but it's hard. Very few foreign companies have been able to actually secure Chinese clients. Could you tell us how you have been able to get into SOE, state-owned enterprise, which are said at least as closed, as not easy to enter, as sometimes a bit old-fashioned in the ways they work, based on guanxi, based on connections, and very Chinese. So how do you manage to get those clients, Chinese clients?
Yeah. Foreigners ask me this question a lot. I think, first of all, my background, when I started working in China in end of 1999, for another company. I was employed by a Swedish company. My market was Chinese SOEs, the power plants. So I involved a lot in large-scale power projects, hydropower, nuclear power at that time, Three Gorges project, for example. And my customers were all state-owned companies. That was normal for me. Then people were telling me, "Oh, Bruno, you work with." People were really telling me this. Bruno, you work with Chinese companies. Must be so hard, and they are all very corrupt, and they don't pay, and they don't recognize the value of service. And I was like, "Well, I'm doing very good business with those companies, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's much easier to work with multinationals." And so when I started Siveco in 2004, one of the ideas was to go and work with multinationals. There were two reasons. First, that I heard so many good stories about multinationals, and as a foreigner, I thought maybe it's a good idea, and I have some it's easier for me. Then I thought also, I didn't want to compete with my previous company. We didn't do exactly the same, but quite close. So I didn't want to appear competing with my previous company either. And I thought, let's go for it. And we've initially focused on multinationals. And then we realized, I realized, at least that was my conclusion, multinationals are very, very slow to make decisions. Corruption exists in multinationals, and I'm tempted to say more than in state-owned companies. State-owned companies, the type of state-owned companies I work with, and I used to work with, are big companies under strict control. I remember in around 2002, my customers in the nuclear power industry, at the department manager level, they had their personal bank accounts audited. Some of them were worried. So very tight control, which of course you don't have in private multinational companies, which open doors. This plus the fact that the manager is usually an expat that doesn't know what's going on and that is leaving after a while, opens the door to many funny issues with the purchase manager, with a maintenance manager, which you have to find ways to go around. So I discovered that there was a lot of corruption with multinationals. I discovered they were very slow to make decisions because they needed to report to headquarters, because also the kind of business I'm in. I'm not selling printers or selling printing leaflets or some kind of local service. I'm selling something a little bit strategic with IT, with expensive services. So they usually have to report to headquarters, or they have to go and check, how do we work in the UK? How do we work in Germany? And of course, they don't work with us in those places. That makes decisions very, very, very slow. And payment problems. Lots of payment problems with multinationals. They lose the FAPIA, they lose the contract. So, of course, it's not everything like this, but it's definitely not easier with multinationals. So after a while, after a few years, I decided to go back working with state-owned companies. I never really stopped, but it was a very, very small part of my business in the year 2004 to 2006 or so. Then I decided, let's go back to state-owned companies. Today, over 80% of my business is with these companies. Now, of course, the business is there. I'm dealing with infrastructure projects. Infrastructures, in one way or another, they are state-owned. Even if they are privately operated, you could argue. In many cases, they are still state-owned, or the so-called private company used to be a state-owned company. So it's more or less the same. And in China, in the end, everything is state-owned. Everything is owned by us. Yeah, in the end, the land, all the factories, in one way or another. So it's natural in China to work with state-owned companies. In many places outside of China, on the Belt and Road, the infrastructures are also state-owned. So it's just business as usual for us. We are doing very well with such companies. Of course, we don't work with every state-owned company. We work with, cannot say the best, but we work with large, forward-looking companies, Could mention Zhongshan Water in the city of Zhongshan in Guangdong province. They have a company that manages the water treatment, water distribution, and a few other things, a few other infrastructures. We work with that company, that type of company. So in a second tier city, let's say a municipal government company, these are very good companies. The management there is very, very clear-minded. We have been enjoying very good business with them for, in this case, Zhongshan Water. I think it's three years maybe. We keep getting more business with them because they are large. They're expanding. They're expanding the scope of our solution. They're expanding their own scope. It's an example. And business is profitable. They pay well. They pay on time. It's good.
You talked about Belt and Road, so that's a very good transition to this topic. And at the same time, you talked about the fact that Chinese factories, they don't have the same challenges as Western companies and factories in the 90s, in the 2000s. And now those Chinese companies are going overseas. So the Road and Belt is one of those initiatives actually where you see those Chinese companies working with local companies or going overseas, could be in Middle East, could be in even Europe now. What do you see now as different challenges? I know that you have been involved in other countries, Africa, you name, and certainly other countries on the Road and Belt initiative.
Yeah, our first project outside of China was in Malaysia I believe in 2007 with a Chinese company that built a gas turbine power plant there. They faced the typical challenge of Chinese infrastructure builders abroad, which is they are questioned on their, well, they got a contract, but then they are questioned on the quality of their construction, which is a common issue. So the idea that Chinese build cheap and fast, but the quality is not that good, and it brings you problems down the line. Down the line means when the plant is operating, when you maintain the plant, so maintenance problems. And there's been a lot of bad press on this. By the way, if you look at infrastructures in China, if you look at power plants in China, they are working well. So what happens abroad, it's to put it in a nutshell, what's happening abroad is you don't have the Chinese ecosystem. You don't have a whole bunch of Chinese suppliers, subcontractors. We're all sister, brother companies, all part of the state in the end. All classmates, friends, people who know how to work together. When you take the Chinese construction company abroad, they bring some of their suppliers, of course, the turbine supplier, some major equipment suppliers, but they cannot bring the entire Chinese ecosystem into Malaysia, for example. Of course not. They have to work with local companies, local customer, local service suppliers, local operators, and so on. This brings challenges. You could say they are cultural challenges, technical, cultural. Just because this usual ecosystem is not there, so companies had to work within a different, learn to work within a different ecosystem. This results in what appears as a quality problem, and usually the symptom of that problem appears in relation to maintenance. So that's for us, it's maintenance. So it's things like technical documentation of the plant. A Chinese plant built in China doesn't have to be so well documented because anyway, all the suppliers know each other. So you want to get a spare parts. You don't have clear specifications for the spare part, but you call your friend Mr. Joe in the supplier company down the road, and they'll find a way. They'll find a way to make it and to deliver to you the next day. When the plant is in Malaysia and you want the same spare parts, and the Malaysian operator is trying to look for the spare part, and he found he has no specifications. He found the spare part number he has doesn't match what the supplier in Guangzhou is telling him. Big problem. So we help with this type of documentation issues, which are not documentation issues. It's bigger than that. But through a technical documentation related exercise or project, we are able to make it run smoothly. And then in the end, it's the same type of projects we do in China. We deliver a consulting project and a system, but it's usually around technical documentation for the new plant to help smoothen this communication or cultural issues that Chinese companies have abroad. And that approach is working quite well. So of course, more and more Chinese builders, especially power plant builders, know us, so they can bring us in, and more owners in the target country also know us. Usually they know there's a challenge, they have some kind of concern, and then they can find us. So that's why we have done a lot of marketing in the past 10 years through mostly on the internet, through our newsletter. For example, we have a newsletter where we publish a lot of stories and case studies. So more and more of these owners in the target country, in Malaysia, Indonesia, in North Africa, and in different countries where Chinese are active, know about this, and they might also ask their Chinese supplier to work with us, or at least they would hint that maybe a company like us could be useful. That's how we get into more and more projects. So indeed, we've been working a lot in Southeast Asia. We've been working a lot in Africa as well. There was recently a project with State Grid, China State Grid in Brazil. We have a network of partners in different countries, a lot in Africa, a little bit in South America as well. So we get to work together with a local partner that can take care of all the local issues and the long-term support, while we focus on the Chinese issue and the technology or the core consulting, maintenance consulting job, let's say.
I feel you have a real passion for your business, that you keep thinking about how to innovate when you're talking about Bluebee, the app, and so on. I feel you know in depth what's going on, and you think about it constantly. How did you get inspired? How did you keep up to date in this very technical environment? How do you keep up to date about your competitors to make sure you are still in the race, you are still leading the race, you are still keeping the position as the largest maintenance advisory company in China?
It's I don't look at it like this. Let me try to think about it. We are in a very niche market, very specialized market, where very few people are actually in this business. Very few foreigners, no foreigner is in this business in China, really. Or some people come and go more on project basis. I happen to be the one. And we're dealing with infrastructures, you know, and I've been here for 20 years, so we have seen the infrastructure build up. The success of what the Chinese government has done, when nobody thought they would, you know, every year or so you hear about how China will collapse, how the infrastructures will collapse, how those high-speed projects they are planned to build are just ridiculous. It will never happen. And then, of course, it happened very consistently. It's of course, it's very motivating to see this, to be part of this, to play a very small, tiny part of this. You know, maintenance is a smaller part of this big build up, and what I'm doing with maintenance is an even smaller part of a small part. But you know, we're part of this big move, and it's very exciting. I think it feels very, very good, and we create this we create this business. The concept of combining maintenance consulting and technological solutions doesn't really exist abroad. You go to France, for example, you have software suppliers, knowledgeable about maintenance, but they are software suppliers. Then you have consulting companies that don't have software, and they're going to tell you, no, we are strictly consulting company, and we'll be independent from the software supplier. And that is their business model. It makes sense. It makes sense abroad. So in China, I think it doesn't make sense. So we created a new type of business. That's very motivating. It feels good. And we had to train people. I hired young people. I keep hiring young people, but I hired young people 15 years ago, and many of them are still with us. They have become well-known experts in our industry, and this is very nice. I feel very good about this. So they feel good, and plus it's my company. I do whatever I want with this company. Whatever mistake I've made is my mistake. I don't have to report to headquarters. I don't have to, as I had to before a long time ago now, but before 2004, I was employed by a company. We did very well, but I had to report to people back in Sweden, and they didn't totally agree with my strategy, and there were political issues, and which I don't have today. If there is a political issue, it's my problem, because I'm the boss and the main shareholder. That also, it helps, to keep, to keep high motivation, but I think it's a lot of fun. So we are having a lot of fun being like a pioneer in those industries. And sometimes people tell me, my own staff tell me that sometimes we do things too early. The WeChat stuff, where we released our first WeChat app 2 years ago. People are saying, well, no, nobody wants that. What are we doing, Why do we spend money on that? And I told them, it's a lot of fun, and we'll be the first doing that, and we'll announce it, and we'll get one client, a second client, and we'll have a lot of fun telling people we are the first to do this. And it's sometimes it doesn't work out that well, and we spend a little bit too much money, and it gives us trouble, especially in those years where the business was up and down. We were losing money. We lost a lot of money over the years. But in the past few years, we're actually making money with good profit, and we are growing faster than before. So all this contributes to a kind of feel good effect. And finally, I would say, and I'm thinking aloud here, but we because I never really tried to think about this, but the business is changing. Some core issues we are dealing with are still the same. China is changing. I think everybody says that China is changing very fast, but at the same time, some things never change. So this constant change in technology, in the competitive landscape, in regulations, in what our customers do is very interesting, especially when we know we can rely on foundations that we have. So it gives us some kind of understanding of where the market is going, a kind of fundamental understanding, because I think we understand how the government think, we understand the logic of it. But it's changing, so it's always a lot of fun, but I think we know where we are going. While our competitors don't really, my competitors have a funny bunch of, it's changing very, very fast. Mm. We used to have foreign competitors. Most of them, so 2 of them are very large American IT companies, and the maintenance is a very tiny part of business, it's a subdivision. So we see them, but they don't really involve in the market. They sell their software, and some other local company will do the service, and they are not maintenance focused. We had some specialized competitors, foreign companies, they left. This year, two companies left. 2 of our competitors left the market. They withdrew from the market. They say they never made money in the market, so they just give up. They will make money in their home market or somewhere else. Very interesting. Then we have local competition, but it's very fragmented type of competition. There's hundreds of IT companies that sometimes try to do what we do, but they are not specialized. They're IT companies again. So they come and go. The competitor change from one project to another. Then there's a few copycats. Especially we do a lot of marketing, and we have this newsletter, and then we have the WeChat account where we publish a lot of news. So there's always a company of there's always companies that come and go and try to copy what we do. Usually they believe it's easy. They think it's easy. Oh, it's just an app. It's just an app that can scan, and we put a tag on the equipment. Oh, so easy. And we'll be like, Bruno, we'll make a lot of money, you know. And they come and they disturb us in 1 or 2 projects, and they disappear. So it's not strong competition. But that's also very interesting to see this changing competitive landscape, and to still be there. You know, if we were getting bankrupt, maybe I would not feel good. But we're actually doing better and better. So all this together makes us feel, I don't know, quite passionate about it. Me and my team. I think if you talk to my team members, you will have the same feeling.
One last question. I'm comparing the video I see now and your picture on LinkedIn. And there's one thing which stays the same. It's the statue behind you. You have a statue behind you, which is kind of elephant. Could you tell us the story behind it? I feel that you want it on the videos and pictures.
Well, it's behind me all the time. It's where it is. This is a wooden sculpture. This is Ganesh, Lord Ganesh, the Indian god. I don't know how well you can see it from there, but this is.
I see.
This is Lord Ganesh playing his trumpet. It's a gift I got on my one of my trips to India a long time ago. We have very little business in India now, but I used to have before in my previous company, I used to have a kind of half a business between China and India. Which is very difficult actually, because these are 2 very different countries. When you go from one to another, you really have to switch off your brain or change something. Exhausting. Anyway, I got this in one of my trips to India, and I don't know, maybe it brings me luck, and it is a reminder that we do business outside of China, from China, which is also very interesting. That we are able to see, and my people actually are able to see that what we do in China has reached a level of, I don't know, of excellence or quality, of relevance that we can export together. Usually it's together with a Chinese construction company, but sometimes we also on our own, we get projects outside of China, and they usually they usually go better. They are usually easier to perform. And we have projects in Thailand, for example. My staff always tell me, they are very excited to go to Thailand for projects, and the projects are easier outside of China. And that's very exciting also. And so maybe Ganesh is also for us a reminder. Actually, you cannot see the rest of the room here, but I have several items like this that show that we do business on the Belt and Road.
I see. Congratulations for everything you achieved. I mean, I've been very impressed to see how many Chinese clients you have working with SOEs, and enterprises. And one thing you have achieved, actually, I didn't mention during the talk, and I'm very impressed by, is that as a consulting company, you have a product, you have an app, you have a retainer, you have a SaaS system, which is very rare, and which is what every consulting company is dreaming of. And you have achieved it. And I've been really impressed by this, and hearing that you're going overseas as well. Thanks again, Bruno, for your time and for the technical issues of today, but that happens sometimes with the internet. And thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.